Princess Diana's life choices ultimately led to her death. Understanding the finer details of why this happened, what could have possibly led to such severe consequences, what was the reality of the events that unfolded in Paris almost 25 years ago? Much of Princess Diana's fate during her lifetime was controlled and meddled by the British royal family. And unfortunately, when she died, her fate was handled no differently. Over the past few weeks, I've been researching and studying all the different theories and explanations as to why the Mercedes-Benz crashed in Paris in 1997. And I have to tell you, there's never been a clear explanation. There was obviously meddling and external motive. Princess Diana Frances Spencer and two others died in a car accident on the evening of August 31st, 1997, in a tunnel in Paris, France. Princess Diana, her boyfriend, Dodi Al-Fayed, and their driver, Henry Paul, were the three killed. Daniel Harris, the codification of Princess Diana, did tell us that the only survivor was Rhys Jones, and the only reason he was even believed to survive was because he was wearing his safety belt. The driver of the vehicle wasn't supposed to be working on the night of the crash, and the death of Princess Diana, according to the coroner report, as exposed by Douglas, Karen, Sutton, and Robbie in their 2008 The Hidden Impact of Conspiracy Theories, Perceived and Actual Impact Theories Surrounding the Death of Princess Diana, said that it was a result of a ruptured pulmonary vein and intrathoracic hemorrhaging. But the cause of the crash, unlike the cause of her death, is completely unknown. The most common understanding is that they were driving in an excess speed to outrun a paparazzi, but when you go and you look at Princess Diana's life, what's the rush now? She had been used to the cameras. The limelight was normal for her. Why the rush? She wasn't with anybody she hadn't been with before, and a handful of witnesses said that his driving was not reckless, and rather that they saw a bright white flash just before the crash, which is a known tool used by the M16, a British Secret Service. The known facts of this crash are hardly reliable, and they've changed with new revelations constantly. But the most relevant piece of information regarding the crash is the circumstances that led up to that evening on August 31st. She always shook things up. She walked through the doors of Kensington Palace and apparently stood it on its head. Nobody in the British royal family understood why she did things the way she did, and quite frankly, they didn't like the way she did things. That reputation made her headlines for being more personable, more attentive to the public. She was much more likable. Even Channel 5's Princess Diana Was Murdered by the Royal Family documentary described that even though she wasn't royal, she was the most loved royal person, even after she was stripped of her title, Her Royal Highness. Her controversies for the royal family ranged anywhere from choosing less happy charities that they disapproved of to men that she would later date after not even being a royal anymore. Princess Diana began dating this man, Dodi Al-Fayed, after her formal separation with Charles. He worked in film, and his father was an Egyptian billionaire. He was quite the bachelor, but no more than Charles was when she met him. It should be noted that in Christine Brennan's Diana, Princess of Wales, it was noted that her and Charles were on good terms, but that doesn't mean that his family was not freshly disappointed by her choice in men. You see, Dodi Al-Fayed was an Egyptian, and he was Islamic faith. This was extremely controversial for the times, strictly because it was completely straining of British tradition. How could the British family allow a man of Islamic faith to have such influence or potential influence on two young royal gentlemen, William and Harry? The public eye didn't see her as shaking things up. They felt she was appropriate for the era, and they thought she was relatable and personable, quite frankly. Her death and her circumstances screamed exterior motive, and not one that the public could have possibly given her. There were mishaps that just went beyond measure during this time. One that should be noted was Diana's medical attention after the incident. The tunnel where the crash occurred was less than 4 miles from the hospital that she was called to be deceased at, and it took over an hour and a half to transport her there. With no explanation, no underlying weather, nothing, but it took an hour and a half to transport the most famous British person in Paris. It was just quite awful, but her medical issues didn't stop there. After she was deceased, protocol was breached, and there was a partial embalmment of her body before the coroner had a chance to do an autopsy, which led to several other issues. Not only the fact that it broke protocol, and that is extremely inappropriate, especially in such a high-profile case, but additionally, it prevented other tests from being performed. Princess Diana's relationship with Dodi Al-Fayed was reaching a turning point. See, this is where things start to get messy, because it was said that Dodi Al-Fayed had just purchased an engagement ring from Raposi, which was literally like the day before, from USA's Today McDermott in 2019. She explained that to us in her article. Additionally, their father, Mohammed Al-Fayed, was furious because he had news that nobody else did. And it was that Princess Diana had been pregnant at the time of her death, but quite conveniently, the partial embalmment would prevent anybody from ever knowing otherwise. Just this understanding that Princess Diana being romantically involved with an Egyptian and an Islamic man was just painful for the British tradition, even despite the fact that this is post-separation. That cannot be ignored in the sense that her death was not accidental. Additionally, their driver had quite the suspicious activity. He wasn't their normal driver. He wasn't scheduled to be working, and he is said to have been drinking, both in excess and at an average rate throughout the evening. It was a 1.75 was his blood alcohol concentration when he had his coroner report, which went completely normally compared to Princess Diana's. Additionally, Henry Paul had hundreds of thousands of dollars routed to his accounts, numerous bank accounts, with no way of tracing them. However, it was heavily speculated throughout much of Henry Paul's life that he was connected to the M16 British Secret Service. It's really important to understand that Princess Diana was not what the royal family had in mind when Prince Charles brought home an energetic, enthusiastic, and kind, beautiful, tall, blonde woman in 1981 with a ring on her finger. After their separation, the combination of a hidden pregnancy and engagement to a man who would hinder this British tradition and this distaste for her political agenda, it spiraled. There's too many loopholes and there's too many unanswered questions all these years later to say that her death was not deliberate. Just doesn't make sense. Whether or not death was the intention rather than a severe injury and potentially a resurface back to that British faith and British life is unknown. But what it is known is that her death was a result of her inability to conform to a life, and that her death was rather convenient for the people that were inconvenienced at her helping hands and her celebrity. Thank you.